What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond Ordinary podcast, where we connect with great people doing great things to inspire you to do the same. Got another banger episode with you today. We're going to be talking about cryptocurrencies, man. The market's at an all-time high, so we figured we'd, give y'all the latest scoop. I have my man David Medley here. He's a cryptocurrency expert. I had to bring him on the show. How are you doing today, good brother?
Hello, thank you. Doing great.
So we have so many people on the channel that are, interested in cryptocurrencies. They're at different levels and whatnot. So I just want to go high level overview for today, and then maybe get into some of the nitty gritty. But before we do that, I just want to know what got you into crypto.
Let's see. One question that I've heard it phrased a lot is when did you first reject Bitcoin? Or when did you first reject cryptocurrency, right? For me, when I first rejected cryptocurrency, it was in 2011. Wow. And but then I came back to it in 2014 and got pretty excited. So I'm coming at it originally from more of like a philosophical bent. I'm a libertarian, minarchist, small government kind of person. Right. And we, as libertarians, we'll call it, didn't really have a great solution to the problem of the government controlling the money. Right now, a quasi-government agency called the Federal Reserve controls interest rates and how much money in U.S. dollars is printed and handed out to their cronies, if you will. And the back in 2011 or whatever, people like me were like, oh well, what we need is to go back to gold. We need to go back to silver. We need some kind of commodity money, some kind of specie money, And Bitcoin came along in 2009 and solved this problem in a way that we'd never seen before. And it's really astounding and really, world-changing once you really understand what it is, what it does, what problem it can solve.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, yeah. So on the topic of what problems that Bitcoin solves, it is decentralized, right? And a lot of people don't even understand what decentralized means. Do you mind breaking that down for the people?
Sure. I mean, decentralization in and of itself isn't really a plus or a minus, right? It's good in some ways, bad in some ways. But if you think about, like, if you're playing pickup basketball, right? Who keeps track of the score?
Oh, I mean, everybody, essentially.
Right. There's not one guy, if you're playing pickup basketball with like the scoreboard and he's, calling the fouls or like, putting the numbers up on a big scoreboard, right? It's kind of like everybody just remembers the score themselves, right? And you might have an argument about it, right? And then it's almost like a majority rules kind of thing. Is it 15-14 right now, or is it 15-13? So Bitcoin uses a similar kind of thing. It's called a blockchain, which now I think most people have heard of. And it's a consensus algorithm. And basically, there are thousands of computers all running this algorithm. And they come together to decide, who has what Bitcoin and who doesn't. And there's a lot of math behind it. Like if you were playing pickup basketball, somebody couldn't just say, oh, it's 1,000 to 12, right? You'd know something was wrong. Like you wouldn't have to have some kind of argument about it. Wait, well, maybe it is 1,000 to 12. You know that it's not actually 1,000, right? Similarly in Bitcoin, the computational cost to ferret out false transactions is infinitesimally small. And so even when there's some kind of disagreement that needs to be resolved and to reach a consensus, there are rules in place ahead of time so that the computers can, work it out amongst themselves and, come to the correct conclusion. They can't suddenly accidentally come to this totally incorrect conclusion where a bunch more Bitcoin have been, created out of nothing, or one person accidentally has all the Bitcoin now and nobody else has any.
Right.
So there's a consensus mechanism to it, but it's based on software rules that are strictly defined.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's almost like how I see it. It's like an online ledger, and that's one thing I like about the blockchain is that everything is transparent. You could look and see who sent what, how much, where, and whatnot. That's why shout out CoffeeZilla. That's how he goes and finds all these scams and stuff like that. He looks at the blockchain. Like everything is literally public, which is what I like. Another thing that I personally like about cryptocurrencies is how the fees in terms of like sending crypto. You know what I mean? I just moved some money from my my Trezor wallet to my Coinbase because I plan on selling now that we're getting up to all time highs. I'm trying to sell.
Big mistake.
You said big mistake?
Yeah, for sure.
Really? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
For me, it's like how I see it is we're getting to that greed. Again, I'm not an expert, but I started buying back when it was like like in the 15, 18 range. So like I'm trying to,
Right?
huh? Yeah, 15,000.
15,000.
Yeah, 15,000, not 100. Oh man, I wish it was 1,500. But so I'm just trying to I'm not taking everything. Like I'm just gradually scaling out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in terms of like the cycle, you said big mistake. Where do you see crypto going for this cycle?
It's really hard to come up with numbers unless you have some kind of basis for it, right? And
Right.
the video that I just finished recording for my channel, I go into a bunch of factors as on how you could estimate the eventual value of Bitcoin. If you have like too much of your net worth in Bitcoin, it makes sense to like do some diversification. But I mean, I'll bet you any amount of money that in 4 years it'll be higher than it is right now.
100%. Yeah, I'm keeping some. I will keep. I don't plan on, at least for my Bitcoins. My altcoins I'll eventually exit completely, but Bitcoin I want to keep just a little bit because I know that it's going to be worth so much more, and I want to be able to keep my eye on it, at it for long-term purposes and whatnot, which I recommend everybody do. But actually, that's crazy that we brought this up because one of my questions was, how do you evaluate whether cryptocurrency is worth investing in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult question. Obviously, do you want to talk about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin specifically?
Let's talk more. I guess more so about altcoins because I feel like a lot of people know Bitcoin, like it's very well known. But say like somebody comes in, they're like, Bitcoin's not moving as much, and whatnot. I want to get into a faster moving vehicle. Obviously, there's plenty of scams out there, rug pulls and whatnot. So how do you determine whether an altcoin is a good investment or not?
Well, I mean, you have to do your homework, right? There's what I call a medley test of Bitcoin maximalism that I present to most of my guests, and the idea is you have to hold $100,000 worth of Bitcoin for 10 years, or you have to hold X $1,000 worth of an altcoin, ETF, so to speak, a group of altcoins
Gotcha.
for 10 years, and like how much would that X have to be in order for you to be tempted, to take the altcoins instead of the Bitcoin? And my answer is about 200,000, right? They'd have to be about double because I really think that Bitcoin is a better long-term investment because of mainly the way that the supply and demand works out. I'm not the biggest fan of altcoins, right?
Really?
I'm
Why
more
not?
of a fan of Bitcoin.
Why are you not a fan of alts?
Well, I think that most people don't even understand what Bitcoin, the problem that Bitcoin solves is, right? Most
Mm,
people see it as like the crypto casino, and they're trying to trade and like get in on the right coins at the right time and all that kind of stuff. And for me, philosophically, Bitcoin is the solution, the first solution we've ever had to the problem of consumer inflation in in fiat currencies. Like, we just had a huge bout of inflation, coming out of the pandemic, and people like myself, knew that we were going to have this bout of inflation because you were cutting the supply of goods and you were increasing the number of dollars demanding those goods, and
mm.
everything, the price of everything is determined by supply and demand, even money, even dollars, even Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Glad you said that. A lot of people don't understand that concept.
Yeah. So, like, if you're concerned, I mean, I was just looking at the chart. I don't know if am I able to share.
Oh, I don't. I've never had anybody share, but we could try.
Oh, okay. All right. Can you see this?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. So this is M2, one of the measures of how many dollars are out there. And, we've got the 1 year chart up here right now. 1 year ago, there was $20 trillion in circulation. Now there's, 21 trillion, which doesn't look too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Let's zoom out to 5 years, right? And here we see that like it went from like 15 trillion, up to 20 trillion in a very short amount of time. Now, who's getting those $5 trillion? It's not me. Is it you? Probably not, right?
Mm.
And the problem is that those of us who had some of these 15 trillion at this point, our share of this 15 trillion has been, diluted by the new 5 trillion that was added. And the question is, what do you do about that? How can you stop that? How can you protect yourself from the value of your dollars being diluted on a whim by the Federal Reserve? And the only answer we have really right now is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look on the 10-year chart, it was 21 trillion today. It was only 11.5 trillion 10 years ago. And if you go back every 10 years, the money supply doubles. So like the value of your dollars is just getting diluted. So what do you do? Like, you probably have a job where your wages aren't doubling every 10 years. I would
Definitely
bet.
not. Definitely not. And I'm glad that you brought this up and brought this to people's attention, because a lot of people don't understand inflation. A lot of people don't understand that there's dollars are silently getting killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I always tell my brother, most people only understand, pluses and minuses in their bank account, what comes in and what comes out, but they don't understand the silent killer of inflation. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that people really need to understand and find out ways on how to combat inflation for themselves, and not think that the government's going to come in and raise wages and do all kind of bullshit. That's probably not going to happen. You know what I mean? Or if it
Yeah.
does happen, it'll happen way too late.
People are now pretty familiar with consumer inflation because we had such a big bout of it, but they don't really understand asset inflation, right?
Mm,
Like we just talked about $5 trillion being printed over the span of like a year.
insane.
What was that $5 trillion used for? Well, it was used to buy the stock market, buy that back up when it was kind of at its low, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those people who got those freshly printed dollars, they own stuff now that you used to own. You used to own it. You sold it because you're like, oh man, everything's going bad. I need this money. I need to sell my stocks or whatever. And then they come in with freshly printed dollars. They buy it. Now they own it and you don't. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with homes. Same things with, like real estate and, all these things like, because these things can be bought with freshly printed dollars. We're just being made poorer all the time by this inflation. And the free market kind of economists, often called Austrian economists, they don't define inflation as increase in prices at the store. They define inflation at what we were just looking at there, the creation of new money, because that's where it all stems from. If the amount of dollars was staying steady, prices would actually go down over time, not go up over time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like Bitcoin is the only solution we have for that right now.
Absolutely.
Now, you can look at an altcoin and you can say, like, well, this altcoin does things that Bitcoin doesn't do. And I completely agree. There's things you can do in ETH and Sol and all these kind of things that you can't do in Bitcoin.
Yep.
So, you have to do your homework. I don't trade crypto at all. I for 2 years I was a professional futures trader. And so I traded
Okay.
like S&P futures mostly. But I don't mess around with trading crypto personally
Hmm. Why not?
because it's very tricky and full of scams. I definitely there's plenty of people who can do it. But the problem is it's a negative sum game, and unless you personally have a way to get an edge over the rest of the traders, you're going to lose money over time trading crypto, and at least as opposed to investing in crypto and holding it, buying and holding.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I definitely trading Bitcoin and Ethereum and getting on leverage and stuff like that, just getting liquidated. And I honestly just found it was just better for me to just buy and hold on spot, do way longer term trades, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy in 2022 and then I'll, sell in 2024, 2025. Next bear market dip, I'll buy again, just expand the time horizon as opposed to trying to get in and get out on the 1 hour chart. Like, nah, it
Yeah.
was just too much.
That is one thing I do try to do. I do stretch a little bit harder to invest in, again, Bitcoin mostly
Mm-hmm.
when the dips come in
Yeah.
rather than when the rips are happening. The least sophisticated people that I've ever talked to about crypto trading, they all seem to think that the secret is you wait until something goes up 300% or whatever, and then you buy into it. And so I really suspect that that's probably one of the worst ways that you can trade.
Absolutely, definitely one of the worst. So back to what you said about being a futures trader. How did you get into that? Are you still doing that? Like, kind of walk us through your trading journey with futures.
Well, I just had an opportunity during COVID. My father-in-law is famed trader Victor Niederhofer, author of Education of a Speculator and one other major book. And so we were just kind of trapped in his mansion,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody else was trapped during COVID. And he said, like, if you want, I'll teach you how to trade. So I was like, yeah, fantastic. So did that for a couple of years under his tutelage, and it was cool. I learned a lot. It's not exactly what I want to do with my life. Like I wouldn't. If somebody offered me a pile of money to do it as a job, I would take it. But it's not really what excites me. The
Yeah.
technology of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular is what excites me. So that's where I've taken my career to.
Yeah, no, understandable. Sitting at the charts and watching them every day, doing TA and all that. Like, not necessarily the funnest thing, but I want to go
Yeah.
back talk about how you left crypto in 2011. Then you say you came back in 2014. So I want to ask you, what were some of the biggest misconceptions about cryptocurrency that you had at the time that have changed?
Yeah. So again, I was coming at it from a philosophical point of view. And basically, the answer is I was like, well, Bitcoin's not backed by anything. So therefore, it's no better than, dollars and other fiat currencies. Um, like I said at the time, like we thought like some kind of commodity backed money was going to be the way. Like in the United States, up until relatively recently, you could take cash money and get gold for it, right? So this is what I believe is called representative money. When you can, it represents a certain number of ounces of gold, right? So that was in 1971. The convertibility ended. So before 1971, you could take $35 and get an ounce of gold, um, basically whenever you wanted. U.S. citizens couldn't do it. Foreign citizens could. And before that, the government did a real frickin' rug pull on the entire country. In 1933, FDR essentially confiscated all the gold in the country in exchange for $20 per ounce.
Hmm.
And then in 1934, so 33, he confiscated at $20 an ounce. 34, he changed the price to $35 an ounce, right?
Mm.
So, now that we've got all the gold, we're going to just
Mark it up.
by fiat, by decree, increase the price of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, before that, a lot of banknotes were this representative money where you could go to your local bank and turn in notes from your bank and get gold and silver and stuff from them. And the coins used to be what's called specie, right? So I don't know if you know like why quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies are all shaped the way they are.
I have no
Like why
idea.
is a dime smaller than a penny when it's worth 10 times as much?
Honestly never even thought about that.
Because dimes used to be made out of silver, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quarters and dimes were made out of silver mostly. Nickels were made out of nickel,
Mm-hmm.
and pennies were made out of mostly copper. right?
Okay.
And this is called specie money. Like there's a floor on the value of each penny based on how much you could melt it down and the copper that you could get out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a floor on the value of each dime and quarter based on the silver content. So because, they keep inflating the money supply, the value of these things keeps going down, and then you bump up against this floor. Like at the point where a dime is no longer worth the amount of silver in that physical dime,
Yeah.
you got a problem because everybody's going to melt them down and get 11 cents worth of silver out of them. So
That
they
makes
keep
sense.
replacing the materials in the coinage with less and less valuable base metals. So it's, I think, happened most recently with nickels. Nickels actually did have a lot of nickel in them up until maybe 20 years ago. And it was getting to be too much. Like you had 6 cents worth of nickels in every nickel. And so they had to, reissue them. And this has actually been going on throughout the history of metal coinage, going back at least to the Emperor Diocletian. And it's called debasement. And the pound sterling is probably the best example of this. Okay, what was it? The Holy Roman Empire, I think, with Charlemagne. He came up with the pound sterling, and what was it? It was literally a pound of sterling silver.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have coins and shillings and all this kind of stuff, and they convert in a way that 1 pound is worth 1 pound of sterling silver. But then some government, whoever's doing the mint, runs into some trouble, and they take, let's say, a shilling, right? And it used to be this much silver, let's say, and they take out of circulation all those shillings that have a high silver content. They melt them down. They mint new shillings that have, let's say, 90% of the amount of silver, right? And then they just kind of like pocket the difference. So every shilling that they seize or whatever, they can melt it down, make 11 of these new shillings, and they're making money on this scam, basically. It's called debasement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at you can actually track the price of the pound sterling over, what is it, about 1,300 years now, and you can see that it goes down. I actually have the chart somewhere. I did the research myself one time. It goes down, I think, 2% a year over centuries. And maybe that's where the Federal Reserve got their idea of targeting 2% debasement or inflation of the dollar that we use today.
Absolutely. Okay. And then what is your take on the environmental concerns around Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, it's great. Great question. First, to not agree with, but validate the concerns, okay, Bitcoin mining does take a lot of power. And the cryptocurrency community has tried to address this with something called proof of stake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a controversial topic in the crypto community right now. Bitcoin is based on something called proof of work. And proof of stake burns less energy. It just does. So if you're concerned about the amount of energy being burned by Bitcoin, I would say, look into proof of stake coins. Maybe that's the future.
Mm-hmm.
The real question, though, is how much energy is too much, right?
That makes sense.
I mean,
okay.
Flying takes a lot of energy. If you combine, all the planes that travel around the world, that burns up a lot of energy. Is that too much energy? Is it not enough? You know what I mean? Like YouTube burns up. Last I checked, this might be really old information, but last I checked, YouTube burns up about the same amount of energy as Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network. Okay, is that too much? Is it a waste for all the energy to go into YouTube? And the real answer is that.
It
Um,
depends.
of course. But whatever people are willing to pay for something, that's how much it's worth. Okay. If you don't think that Bitcoin is doing anything, then you would look at it and say, hey, why are they burning all this energy? What a frigging waste. Okay. But if you say, hey, Bitcoin is this revolutionary technology that solves a problem that no one had ever been able to solve before and gives us an opportunity to keep the central banks of the world honest and preserve our purchasing power into the future, you might say, well, the amount of energy we're burning to solve that problem is actually quite small.
Hmm.
And that's my take is that compared to what Bitcoin does for us, the amount of energy being burned is quite small. But nevertheless, I think it could be smaller. There are questions about like, do we need to be using that much energy? There's really not a good mechanism that balances how much energy is being used versus how much energy needs to be used for Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So, I think that there's a lot of points to be made on both sides, but the bottom line answer is that the Bitcoin community is paying for all that energy, and we are doing so happily because we know that it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good take, especially just looking at, you know, you start off by basically saying like whatever the market's willing to pay for it. You know what I mean? Like there's not really necessarily a metric that says like okay, like there's this is good and then this is bad. You know what I mean? So that's yeah, I like that. And then how do you see the roles of government and regulations evolving in the crypto industry?
Well, we seem to have had a good result in the November election. I did not vote for either of those two candidates. I'm independent, I guess. Uh, I mean, if I could eliminate the federal government tomorrow, I would. So that's where I am. I think it'd be even better to eliminate it slowly over time. But um, it seems like, at least for the next 4 years, Bitcoin, the United States is going to be one of the leading lights in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So, good result in those terms. I definitely don't agree with the new administration on broad terms, but happy to have a friend to cryptocurrency in the White House.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Mr. 45 or 47, whatever he's going to go by, is definitely going to be a lot pro crypto, and I think that we're going to see a lot more gains, and we're going to see some legislations passed that we haven't seen before that'll increase the price of crypto. So that's
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, like there would be no regulation on cryptocurrency at all. But that's not very realistic given the regulation on everything that we do.
yeah.
So I think that there probably needs to be a new department that's specifically for regulation of cryptocurrency. What we've had is where the commodities and the securities um, and I think at least one other agency are all kind of like trying to regulate it from different angles.
Right.
And I think that's probably the worst of the three scenarios where we have just like no regulation or a bunch of different agencies trying to regulate it or a single agency. I think that what we've had so far is probably the worst. So yeah, if I had to rank them, that would be my ranking. I'd rather have no regulation at all, but if we have to have regulation, I'd like it to be its own department.
Hmm. And then, so you had mentioned previously before that people should definitely do their own research, and absolutely they should do all the research. Nothing we're saying today is even is financial advice at all whatsoever. Definitely do your own research. It'll behoove you to do that. But because crypto is fast pacing, ever changing, things change. Pretty much every cycle, there's something new. We had FTX back in like 2021 and whatnot. So like, how are you keeping up to date with the news and the trends?
Well, you can tune in to Proof of Pod. Pretty much every Thursday, we produce a new show and we
Yes,
address all
sir.
these questions. That's my show. I started it to kind of try and answer these questions and keep up with stuff. Um, I mean, probably the two biggest influences on me were Antonopoulos. who he doesn't seem to do a lot of content anymore, Andreas Antonopoulos, but he has a lot of great legacy content still on YouTube and other places. So you can really check his content out once you're done watching all of Proof of Pod's content. And the What Bitcoin Did podcast with his name is escaping me right off the top of my head, but he kind of came at it from more of like an everyman point of view, and did a lot of interviews from that everyman point of view. And you can find that podcast still, on Spotify and anywhere you get podcasts. And he also has a YouTube show. He's switched now more to kind of more of like a Joe Rogan kind of show, where it's not strictly about Bitcoin, but he's still a huge fan. He used his Bitcoin and show profits to like buy a football team in England, a soccer team, and like a bar in there and stuff. And I just appreciated his approach as an everyman. And also, like, I'd write in to his show and he'd like respond to me all the time, which I thought was really great. Very accessible guy.
Absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. Glad to see that people are active in their communities and giving back. But you mentioned Proof of
Peter
Pod.
McCormick is his name. Peter McCormick.
Peter McCormick. Cool.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Proof of Pod, man. So tell me about your podcast, your show. Like, what made you want to start?
Well, I'd wanted to do something like this for a long time, and then through various connections, a team that is making their own cryptocurrency it came to me and said, like, will you make a show with our founder? And I was like, great. So they were paying me for a while to make it, and it just wasn't working out where they felt like they should be putting their time somewhere else. So we parted ways, and I kind of like bought the show back from them, because I really didn't want to give up. I had a lot of interviews scheduled, and I really like enjoy the people that I'm meeting, and I enjoy getting the content out there. So kind of like dribbling out, maybe like an episode a month for a while, and then I met you.
Hey,
Let me just say a couple more words about Proof of Pod first. But so it's just covering all of cryptocurrency from kind of a philosophical and economics and history bent. We don't focus on the crypto casino. We don't focus on what altcoin is booming right now and whatever. There's no or almost no like trading advice. It's investment advice. It's education. It's not like all this hype. Like I recently got on YouTube and stuff like that, and it's just so much hype, and it's so much like, oh, you gotta get in on XRP because it's mooning and all this stuff. So we don't do that. It's information. It's education. It's philosophy. It's education. I said education. Philosophy. It's economics and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really proud of it, and I've gotten a lot of good response from it so far. Although the numbers aren't where we want them to be, but they're growing a lot. The growth has actually been really good.
Absolutely.
So after dribbling out, like I said, like maybe 6 episodes in 6 months or something like that, I saw you doing an interview with.
It was Bart Hansen. It was Bart
Hansen, yes. I almost said Tuckman, his long-term partner in work, not in life. And he was just talking to you, and kind of like this. Actually, you guys were face-to-face, right?
Yeah, so me and Bart, we've been working together for a little over a year, and I wanted to do an interview with him, and I was originally going to go to Boston to link up with him. But at the time I asked him, I think it was like maybe it might have been late March, early April, and he told me, he was like, hey, like, it might honestly be better for you to wait to go to, if you could wait to do the interview to do it in Vegas at the WSOP, and you could probably get more interviews. And I was like, you know what, that actually makes more sense. So
Yeah.
I went down to Vegas, found a studio, and we jumped on, and it's been great working with him for sure. We're actually about to
Yeah.
launch his Black Friday his Black Friday sale starting
Yeah.
on Monday. So
I'm a big poker player. I'm a winning poker player.
good to hear.
And I was following his content, and I kept seeing these shorts, and I was like, man, these like are so good. I didn't know like you could take, because his normal content is of course good and everything, but it's kind of like, you know, long form, if you will.
Yeah, it's like 15,
And then,
20
you
minutes.
know, I saw these like 1 minute, you know, punched up version of his show, and I was like, man, these are really good. And I saw you talk to him, interview him, and he just said basically like, you know, you approached him and said like, hey, you're not doing any shorts. You know, I can do shorts for you. And, you know, then I was like, oh, I need a guy like that, you know? So then I contacted you, and I've been very happy so far with everything that's gone on.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm glad customer satisfaction is our number one priority. But yeah, man. So in
Yeah. So
terms,
you're doing, I think 15 shorts a month for me. And can I say what the price is, or it
nah,
doesn't, I won't say exactly, but
we
it's a good deal. I'm
yeah,
very happy with the,
we do custom pricing. That's why
okay.
I don't have a website that says here are my prices, because
Right.
everybody's different. Especially because
Yeah.
like me, for me and you're one of the only people that like I help edit like people's podcasts with.
Mhm.
I don't have anybody else I do that for. So it just depends. But you know, for the people watching, I do have a media company called Strive for Greatness Media. You know, shout out LeBron James, one of my favorite basketball players of all time. That's why I named my company after him, because he
Jordan.
just has Jordan. Look, nobody's. I don't know. We could have a whole separate episode about that, but mainly because of his longevity. The fact that he's been just able to just go. I think he's in year 22, and I was like, yeah, that's why I'm naming my company after, because I don't want to just start some company and then go the way after a year.
No, he's great as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just help content creators, podcasters with their short form content. You know, a lot of people are in the long form game, and a lot of my clients they've been in YouTube for years, and so but like shorts YouTube Shorts has only been around since I think 2021. And so when those came out and the algorithm was powerful and you were able to get so much reach a different audience, I decided to come in and make my business. And so I work with a couple other people that have podcasts, and take their clips, and I've been doing really well. So if y'all need any media help, hit me up.
I highly recommend it. Believe me. I mean, it hurts me because I don't want like you to get too busy to handle my little show. But I mean, I've just been super pleased. So I can only give you all the stars or all the thumbs up. So if I'm correct, kind of TikTok came along first, and then YouTube and Instagram, Facebook kind of like tried to copy their short form. Thanks for watching part 1 of this interview, where we focused mostly on cryptocurrency and Proof of Pod, my channel. Please check out part 2 of the interview, where we talk about Myles and everything that he's been doing. We might even have a link up here. If not, it's definitely in the show notes. We talk about Strive for Greatness, Myles' company, his podcast, and how he arrived at the industry that he's in, and how he's helped my channel immensely. So please check that out. Thanks.